My name is Tyrus Young. I'm 34 years of age and I'm from Deptford, currently living in Kent. So, was born in Guy's Hospital in Southwark, a place where I never really spent that much of my time. I moved to New Cross with my mum when I was 1 year old. Stayed there for about a year and moved down into Deptford from New Cross, which is where I'm known. Spent my life growing up in Deptford, getting to know the ways of life through Deptford, which is not an easy place to grow up. Dad wasn't around for a while. Probably came back into the picture when I was about 6 years old. In that time, I was spending a lot of time with my nan, as my mum was still finishing her studies, so that she could come back and take care of me a bit more than she was. Learn a lot from my grandparents. They were like the traditional old Jamaican grandparents, installing the ways of the Jamaicans in me, the work ethics and the principles and the morals and all sorts. I kind of took up an interest in wrestling from then on. Wrestling was kind of like my life. I didn't actually participate in it, but that used to be like where I was kind of missing that father figure. I used to find it in probably watching wrestling, old wrestling like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and things like that. Me and my granddad would stay up and watch all the SummerSlams and the WrestleManias, even though I was too young to be staying up at those times, but I would be. So I consider myself to be quite athletic and quite active from young. Moved down to Deptford and I started primary school at Mike Gardens in New Cross, which was quite a known primary school. A lot of people came from there. A lot of wrong uns and a lot of right uns sprung from there. I'd like to say that I was a wrong un turned right un that sprung from Mike Gardens, but it was a good little school to grow up in. I learned a lot of things there and I met a lot of people that I'm still in touch with today. There I started kind of misbehaving. I kind of started going down the wrong path from there. Just being bad, just acting up for the crowd, just wanting to make everybody laugh as opposed to getting my education. And at that point, they labelled me dyslexic. They said I was dyslexic and I wasn't achieving what I was supposed to be achieving. So I had to go for these kind of little assessments and things like that. In the end, it turned out that I wasn't. But I feel like maybe they just placed a label on me because I just wasn't acting as normal as a normal child should, if that's politically correct. But I did end up finishing school early due to a comment I made to the head teacher, which wasn't something that I'd repeat on camera, but it saw me lose the last 15 days of my school life in primary school. Albeit, got myself back on the straight path and ended up going to Deptford Green. Ended up getting four GCSEs, leaving Deptford Green with 4 A to C's, 1 A star actually in drama. From the start of secondary school, I kind of found an interest in football. I played a little bit in primary school, but secondary school it kind of kicked off where we had our years and we had our football teams. We'd go to other schools and play other teams, and I think the local rivalry of my school, Deptford Green, was Crofton. We used to play them about twice every year. Always resulted in a few fights, but it was a learning experience nevertheless. Enjoyed my time in Deptford Green. Got into a few situations that I couldn't really see myself getting into now. Everything's a learning curve. I don't feel like you make any mistakes in life. I feel like they're just all lessons. So first day of secondary school, I got there and I met this boy called Derek. He turned out to be probably one of my best friends. And at that point, I didn't realize he would be such a major part of my life. But he was the first one to welcome me into secondary school, show me a little bit of the ropes, because he was on the streets a little bit more than I was around Deptford and New Cross. So he introduced me to his circle. And from there, I got a load of friends. I became a little bit more popular in school. Still popular for the wrong things, though. I found myself, again, playing up for the crowds, trying to impress girls, trying to impress my peers by doing stupid things that they wouldn't do, which is not something I'd advise anyone to do, because you end up getting yourself into a situation at the expense of everybody else. But I was a good child. I would say I was a good child, and I was trying to be good, but going the wrong way about it. So I found that football was kind of like my escape. It was kind of like my release from everything that was going on. Family life wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the greatest. My dad was in and out of my life. Although he was there, he was a part of it, but he wasn't there as a proper figure. He wasn't there for me to kind of look up to. And some of the things that were occurring wasn't something that you'd want a child to see. Albeit, I feel like I was kind of like him a little bit, where we have good intentions, but we go about these things in the wrong way. Did struggle a bit in school. I don't think I was interested in the curriculum that much. I was more interested in the people that I was with and doing things that they were doing and getting the trainers that they were getting. I weren't interested in getting the grades, which ultimately kind of hindered me at the end of school. Although I left with GCSEs, I didn't really have a lot of experience in maybe things that I should have known about, like maths. Are really struggling, and that was another reason for them to try and label me with a disability as such. They're saying I was dyslexic and things like that. Not that there's a problem with being dyslexic, but that wasn't me. I was just bad, and I didn't pay attention to things that I was supposed to be learning. So, back to school, and it was kind of rough for me because I don't feel like the teachers understood me as well in school. They didn't really get me. And now at the age of 34, I'm a teaching assistant, and I see the importance of being able to relate to the children that you work with. And I was just unrelatable. I think I have to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, because I was a child that you couldn't really read. You couldn't really understand what really went on in my mind. I'd do dumb stuff like sit in the back of class and eat Tibbz for no reason. And it was just to get a laugh, which was so stupid. So how do you really relate to somebody that eats Tibbz in the class to get people to laugh? It just doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, I do feel like they targeted me and they did victimize me to a certain extent. Not every teacher, but most of the teachers that didn't get me, they kind of was a bit more tougher on me, which I thank them for, because it helped me later on in life to be as tough as I am. And I do thank them a little bit for the treatment that they gave me. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I feel like they did actually strengthen me up and allow me to be able to deal with some of the things and some of the struggles I've been through in life as such. So I went through secondary school, the usual, just like primary school. I was being excluded and being sent out of class and getting letters home. And I think when it really hit home that I need to kind of buckle up my ideas is we had a cup semi-final, and I'd been sent out of a class, and the letter had been sent home to my dad this time. It didn't get sent to my mum, it got sent to my dad. And my dad said to me, "There's no chance you're playing in that semi-final." And that proper destroyed me, because we had played so well, gone unbeaten, got to the semis, and we was going to win the tournament, but he wasn't allowing it. I couldn't even sneak into it. So from that moment there, I kind of buckled up my ideas and got my head down. There's no sneaking into it. There was no way I could get back into the team for that. I just had to do what he said, and he said I weren't going. I'll never forget the feeling that the PE teacher, who was actually my coach, felt that time when I had to come and give him the news that I weren't allowed to play. I saw his face just literally drop, because I wasn't the best player on the team by no means. There was a few ballers on the team. I probably was the main striker, but I wasn't the best player, but I was very useful. And his face when I told him was something that will sit with me forever. It's not like a life-changing thing, but it was horrible to know that he'd put he's all into it, and I'd come and messed up with my behaviour. So from then, I kind of buckled up my ideas and knuckled down, got my head into my books, and managed to scrape 4 GCSEs and leave school with that. Albeit I left as well probably with the record for the most exclusions in the time in secondary school. I won't give the number, but it was more than three figures. It's not something I'm proud of. But all in all, I did all right to leave school with what I did. From there, I went on to Lewisham College, studied sport and leisure. It was basically like a course for you to learn how to run a gym, how to do first aid, how to be kind of self-sufficient as well. It was like a business course and a coaching course wrapped in one, as well as running the gym. So that was something that really did interest me, and again, I met a lot of nice people along the way there, people that I'm still in touch with today. It was very useful to me. I've had a few business endeavors at the later stage of my life, which I feel that college course kind of helped me into it. So I kind of urge, now that I'm a teaching assistant, I kind of urge the children to kind of pay attention at whatever level they're at, because things that you do now that might not make sense to you may become relatable later on down in life. So done my course, went there with Derek again, but he went on to do the Protect course, which was a football course, and I met a few other guys that I kind of befriended till this day, and I met them again on the football circuit. And college was a hell of a time. It was the kind of time in my life where the girls get introduced into the mix properly, and you kind of try and juggle life and the distractions that come with it. So yeah, I kind of met my first love in college. I won't say her name on camera, but I met my first love in college. That was kind of my first experience of love outside of the family setting. And yeah, it was a nice thing. It was a nice thing to experience. Kind of set me up for life. Didn't work out through mistakes of my own, but we're still friends today, and I learned a lot of valuable lessons in that time as well. I learned how to treat someone, how to compromise, how to take someone else's feelings into account. There's a lot of things I learned from that one person, which I thank her for, and it helped us remain friends today. So yeah, that's a chapter that I've closed in my life. College, I stayed there for 4 levels. I stayed in college for. I got all my MVQs in sports science. I got sports leaderships awards, which enabled me to coach away from football as well. So taking a few steps backwards, when I was 19, I found out that I was actually going to be a father for the first time, and this was kind of surreal to me. It's nothing that I experienced at all in my life. I'd been with someone for best part of 3 years on and off, so it wasn't like just a one-off thing. This was the person that I was with, and at that point I realized that I need to kind of pull my socks up, get my head in check, get myself in order, find myself a job and do things correctly. And lo and behold, he came on the 4th of July. His name is Kai. He'll be 14 soon, which I'm dreading. Not really, no, he's grown up to be a very nice boy, very lovely boy. But yeah, once he came along, everything changed. I still wasn't in the best home situations, and I wasn't in the best of situations with his mum as well, but we made it work. I made it work. I got myself a job, started doing what I could. I wasn't breaking the bank and getting him everything I wanted to get him and buying him the latest stuff, but he had the necessities that he needed, and that was something that I kind of made a priority, to at least be able to get the necessities as opposed to just splashing out and kitting my son out. So that was a moment in my life that helped me grow up a little bit, and I think I needed to have something there to aim towards, to say, I need to step it up just for this person. And that was what he was. He was my focal point. He was the thought process behind everything. Even with my football, which started at 22, the process kind of started from when I was 19, but not at the semi-pro level. But he was my focal point to try and get higher in the leagues and try and do better. And it was a great experience. I'm still doing it till this day. So towards the end of my Brighton career, I'd met someone else, and I found out I was going to be a father for a second time, and this time I was going to have a little girl. She came along. She kind of changed my life again. It was like a double change, switcheroo. So she kind of changed up my mindset on a load of things. Obviously I had a boy before, and when you have your boy, you kind of, as a man, I'm a little bit relaxed with my boy, because I won't shield him as much as I would shield my daughter, because he is a boy. And I know it may not be politically correct in today's world, but he was a boy that kind of, I wanted to understand that in life it's going to be a bit harder for him. He's going to have to protect himself. He may have to protect someone else one day. So he might fall down and get hurt, and I'd just look at him. I wouldn't make a noise. I wouldn't panic so that he would panic. I'd allow him the chance to stand up and dust himself off and carry on with it. Whereas my daughter would probably fall down, and I'd run to her aid and give her a hug and whatnot. She changed my outlook on a load of things. She changed my outlook on life. She changed my outlook on being a better man. She changed my outlook on the way that I treat women. Playing non-league football, you're getting paid for it. You're getting a wage, and you'd go out at night, and you go out on team nights out, and probably a lot of the time you'd act inappropriately. So having a daughter kind of changed my whole perspective on that kind of aspect, where I'd probably womanize and be like a misogynist in the public eye. So she helped me in that sense. Ran into difficulties in that situation that still carry on till this day, but nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in terms of wanting to be that better person for my daughter, wanting to be that better person for myself. She changed me then, and the thought of her now still changes me to push me and make me be a better man and improve on myself. I don't believe you can ever stop improving. I don't believe you can ever know too much. I don't believe you can ever stop feeding yourself knowledge. So I just carry on in the same vein. I try not to let things get to me. I don't know about other people, but not seeing a child is probably the worst thing that could happen to someone in my eyes. So everything else that occurs now is trivial. Football, I'd play football, I'd get racist comments. Playing in Kent, playing at Herne Bay away, you'd get racist comments. I got called a big gay Muslim once, big black gay Muslim, and I was like, that doesn't even make sense on any planet. I just laughed at it, and people were confused that I just laughed at it, and I was like, it's just trivial. So you learn to let a lot of things go, even though a lot of things need to be addressed, because it shouldn't be that someone feels that's a normal thing to say to somebody. It shouldn't be that way. So other things that happened outside of football in my life became trivial at that point, and just got on with things. And I think that didn't help me. It didn't help me in the sense that it affected me in a way that I didn't understand. So 2019, let me skip back actually. Let me go again. In a way that I didn't understand. Boom. So a few years after I kind of dampened down my football career and had my daughter, I got into a little altercation in a nightclub where I was defending another girl. Well, she was actually a friend of my friend. I'm not sure if they was in a relationship at the time, but they was close like that. And I ended up getting stabbed in the base of my spine. Kind of lost the use of my right leg for 2 days. And hospital said that you wouldn't be able to play football for 3 months. And I was playing football 2 days later with 8 stitches in my back. So that's the type of person that I was. I kind of just got on with things. And ultimately, it didn't help me because I would just bottle things up and I'd carry on moving, but I wouldn't talk about things. I wouldn't get things out in the open. And I've been diagnosed, not too recently, I've been diagnosed with suffering from anxiety. which is, it doesn't sound like the worst thing, but these things come in different ways and different forms. For me, I sweat a lot. I sweat a hell of a lot, which means my body's anxious, and I might not display it to you physically, like there's something wrong with me, but this is what's going on with my body. I sweat. I'll be out in a club and I'll leave. I'll just leave randomly because I don't like the crowds, or I don't like being around people. And it's affected my life a lot. It's affected my life a lot. It's brought on panic attacks. It's brought on little episodes where I'm kind of not myself. And if you know me that well, I'm kind of not the guy that you would know. If you paid that much attention to me when I'm on a football pitch, you would see that I've got like a nervous tick. Like you might see me blink, clench my eyes, or you might see me do a little thing on my arm like that. That's like my little anxiety tick, which I find it quite funny, to be honest. It's not a funny thing, but I find it quite funny that I'm losing control like that. So, but these things have to be addressed. I feel like these things have to be addressed. You go through a lot of things in life, and people feel like they are able to deal with these things, and they're not. They feel they're totally equipped to just take things on the head and get on with it, but they're not. And I've actually took myself to CBT counselling. I think it's CBT counselling or training. I don't know what they name it, but it's cognitive behaviour therapy. So it's not training, it's therapy. And one of the things that the counsellor picked up on was the fact that I was the go-to guy. People used to come to me with problems, and I used to advise them on their own problems, but I hadn't dealt with my problems first. So it's kind of like, how can you advise someone on their issue if you still got issues yourself? It doesn't make any sense, and it's kind of like a flawed blueprint. So we spoke about a lot of things in the counselling, and one thing that really affected my life was an event that happened in 2007. Going back to my story from secondary school, the first boy I met on the first day was Derek. He was my friend. He was my best friend. We done everything together. We used to jog together. We played football together. We'd go out together. He was the only person that could knock my house door at 1 o'clock in the morning and get away with it. My mum would allow it. He was years ahead of me in the football sense. He would play for Tooting and Mitcham for a few years, and he went to Texas to do a scholarship. He was a person that loved his sleep, and he had training one day, and apparently, it's what I was told, the boys had knocked the door to wake him up for training, and they didn't get no answer, so they thought they'd leave him. And they went to training and came back. Next day, same thing, training again. They knocked the door, no answer, so they got a bit more worried this time, so they decided to kind of break into the room. And when they broke into the room, he'd fallen asleep, but he'd fallen asleep for good, and he'd passed away in his sleep. There was no signs of struggle or anything like that, so he literally just passed away in his sleep. He had a heart issue. I don't think he was aware of it. I don't think his family was aware of it. And I think it was actually an undetected heart issue. So it was no fault of anybody, not even his. It's just one of those things that happen. And I feel like that kind of sent me off the rails a little bit. It affected me in a lot of ways. I couldn't comprehend what had happened to him. I couldn't understand why he passed away. He was so much more fitter than me. We used to eat the same things. I was afraid to sleep myself for many years because I'd think to myself, what is it, something we ate? Maybe it's going to happen to me next, or was it something we did training, or I don't know. But he passed away, and I found it hard to deal with. I found myself kind of struggling in life to deal with that. That was 2007. So at that point, I was off the rails. I was just an angry individual, very angry, just at the world, because nobody could explain to me how my friend had died. I'd spent a couple of nights in the graveyard by his grave. So that was not something that is normal if you find yourself falling asleep in the graveyard. it's not normal climbing over the gates and doing that. Which ultimately affected my life. It affected my relationships. It affected the person I am. It affected the person I was, should I say. Um, Probably ended a few of my relationships as well, which I don't hold that responsible for everything that happened, but I feel like it played a part in it. And when I went to the CBT therapy, this is what the lady said was the root of my issues, because I hadn't spoke to anybody about Derek. I just took it on the chin and I carried on getting on with life. And it wasn't the fact that I was just getting on with life. It was the fact that I had questions that I needed the answers to, and nobody could provide the answers because the doctors didn't have any answers. His mum didn't know anything. Nobody knows what happened to me. Just literally one of those things, and it took me a while to accept that and just say that if he was here now, he wouldn't really want me to be in the state that I'm in. I was having fights. I was being aggressive. I was treating people with no respect, and it's just a point in my life that I really, really wanted to kind of erase from the memory. But I don't feel like erasing anything is good for you, because these things happen and they shape you. They make you who you are today. So that was a point in my life where everything changed for me. And again, it changed again when I went to the CBT and I found out that it's better to talk than to keep things bottled up. But once I got that off my chest, I was a new man. Like literally, within months, I was up on my feet again. I was happy. I was engaging. I was socializing. I was accessible. People could talk to me. Whereas before, I don't think anybody would want to really talk to me. And obviously, I got a lot of dislike, and there's still a few people till this day that dislike me for the way I was at that point, but hopefully they can hear this and they'll understand that I was going through something. Everybody goes through stuff, not everybody goes through it visually, but yeah, that's part of the blueprint of Tyrus, the makeup, that little event in my life. Kind of touching on the kind of mental side of everything I went through. That was just one event that I went through. There's a load of little micro events and things like that I kind of took on board, but I didn't really deal with in the way I should have. And one of those was the time as well, also when I got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I say I got caught, but one of my family members was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they ended up being shot. And that was a new experience for me. I've come across these things in my area. I've never been a part of any guns or shooting or stabbings or anything like that personally, and I don't think they have either. But this was brand new. Seeing your family member shot and having to run with them to safety, it was just all a bit much. And at the time, I thought to myself, "It's cool. It's happened. It's gone." For him, the damage was there, but for me, it was cool. I got him out of trouble and we'll get back to business. But behind closed doors, it had a massive effect on me, and I don't even think I'd ever told him about this or anybody about this. When you're in that situation and after it happens, everything's cool, but when you're in the night, when you're sleeping, flashbacks are real. They're real. And I'd find myself on many nights waking up in cold sweats, even to the point where I'd probably piss myself in my sleep. I say that on camera? Because the flashbacks were just too much for me. And I'd never even when I went to the CBT, I never even spoke to the woman on touching on that issue. It was a very traumatic time, and a lot of people don't understand trauma. Trauma is very bad for you, and it doesn't necessarily have to involve you. It could be what you're watching, or what you're feeding yourself. But obviously, this was first-hand experience of trauma, and it was so close to home. It had this effect on me where it just affected my sleep, my eating pattern, it affected my mind. Even loud noises would just, like at the time I didn't flinch when there was bang bang, but even afterwards when a door would slam or a cupboard would slam, I'd jump, I'd be out of my skin. Um, and yeah, that's something that I feel like I've just dealt with within myself. But I wouldn't advise it because it took me a while to come to terms with what had happened. I don't think it really hit home until I'd seen my family member in the hospital bed, and the words that we had and the tears that we shared together. I don't think it really hit home what had happened until I'd kind of experienced that. Um, and this is all happening. You have to remember, this is all happening to me at a young age, when my mind is still growing, I'm still developing, and these are some things that people. I don't think people should see these type of things in their lifetime, but between the ages of 20 and 25, you're seeing these type of events. It's going to have an effect on you, and it's going to kind of change you, maybe for the good, maybe for the bad. But for me, it changed me for the bad. um, Mentally, I wasn't in a great place. I wasn't in a great place to be a parent. In my honest opinion, I wasn't in a great place to be somebody's partner. I don't think I was in a great place to be somebody that you'd come to for advice. These things affected me in the shadows because I'd never let these things be seen in the public. I'd never let them be public knowledge. As much as I did have my Facebooks and my Twitters, and I used to put a lot of my business out there, I've always maintained that what I put on social media is what I allow people to see. And you can actually allow people to see a lot less by just saying a random comment and making people think that's the truth. You can just give them a swerve curveball and lead them off the trail with that. And I've always maintained that. I always put out what I allow people to see. I never put all my business out there. So a lot of people would find it surprising that I've been through all this stuff because they'd never hear me speak about it. And that's part of the problem. I never spoke about it. But when I say speak about it, I feel like you need to speak about it to the right people, to the professionals, to people you can confide in, not people that are going to use it against you or hold it against you later on in life. So I have a friend now that I speak to. He's kind of like, he's younger than me, but he's kind of like my mentor. It's weird. He's got all the right advice. I'd never promote anybody to have any yes men around them. Somebody that's just going to say yes. You need people in your life that's going to tell you no. Should I do this? No, it's not good for you. Should I have acted like that? No. You need people like that. And this guy, like he's a proper godsend. He doesn't realize how much of an inspiration he is to me in what he does in his everyday life and the advice that he gives me. And he's the first person I always pick up the phone to. And that's not something I had when I was younger. I had a lot of friends, but I never had a lot of friends that would tell me no. I had a lot of friends that would, as I said in school, they would egg me on to eat the Tibbz or to to do the stupid things in the dinner hall, like grab a cake and run, or kick the Coke machine. Like, they would never say, don't do that because you're going to get in trouble. And sometimes, obviously, you have to take responsibility for your own actions, but sometimes you need someone there in your corner to just whisper in your ear and say, don't do that. Like, there's no point to that. And I've got that at this stage in my life. I've got that. And I think a lot of people see the change in me now. I'm a much calmer individual. I'm much more diplomatic. Whereas before I was probably like just 0 to 100. Now I'm much more diplomatic, and I'd like to talk things out before they get to a point where it's going to get out of hand. So and I do credit that to him. I credit that to my mum. I credit that to a lot of people that actually listen to me, and a lot of people that understand, because there's no understanding without any dialogue. If there's no dialogue and you're not giving anyone any information, then they can't understand what you're going through or how they can help you. So to the people that listen to me, I'm very thankful because they've had this massive positive effect on me. Where I'm not saying I'm perfect, because nobody's perfect, but I've made like a massive improvement in the person I am today. Well, my mum was a massive influence in my life. She kind of for a while she did both roles. Um, she did everything. She didn't have a lot of help. She had a good family network around her, but she didn't have a lot of help, and she always made it work. Always used to find money, just find money to give me so I could have good things, and I appreciate her for that. She also taught me right from wrong. My mum's probably one of the most humblest people I've known in my life, but you still wouldn't want to mess with her because she'd let you know that she's not happy. She's got that trigger, and I've always said that I don't feel like that little trigger that I've got comes from my dad. I think it comes from my mum. She was a wrong 'un in school. She was a proper wrong 'un in school. But again, it's kind of like we kind of had the same story. We was both wrong 'uns, and we came out full circle, and we kind of made a change later on in life and became better people. So she's almost as important as God is to me, to be honest with you, because I've known nothing other than my mum and my family up until this point. So she's been a big influence on my life as well. She does a lot. She definitely helps me out a lot. And she's that person as well also that will tell me no when I might want to hear yes, but she will definitely tell me no. Well, the advice I'd give to them is the advice I give to myself every day. I always say it could be worse. It could be much more worse. So the main thing is to keep going, keep swimming, persevere through whatever you're going through. If it's an issue that you feel you have learning difficulties, or you need extra help in something, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think as humans, sometimes we may be afraid to ask for help. We may feel like we're a lesser person if we ask for assistance in certain things. That's not the case. That's what help is there for. Help is there to help you succeed. So if you feel like you need help, you need to find help, seek it, speak to people, speak to whoever you need to speak to your teachers, speak to your peers, speak to your parents, and find the help that you need. If you're in something you can't get out of, for example, a gang, speak to your mom about it. Let her know that this is what's happening. Because I always tell my young students, being in a gang, there's only three ways that's going to end. You're either going to end up in jail, you're either going to end up dead, or you're either going to be stuck in the same spot that you was when you was this age, when you're my age. And it's not worth it. At the end of the day, being in a gang, stabbing people, robbing people, those things are not going to get you a mortgage and a good job later on in life. And there's no point to it whatsoever. So that's the advice I'd give to them. Right now, in this most uncertain of times of COVID-19, it's kind of been like a eye-opener. It's been an eye-opener to understand that maybe sometimes we need to appreciate the smaller things in life. Throughout this time, I've decided to start writing my own book, kind of like a memoir about my life. I've started riding a bike. I've started to try and be fitter. So it's been fine. The first few weeks were fine. I struggled a bit towards the middle of it because I had little anxieties about whether my children were okay during this time, whether their mothers were okay, doing all right. And it kind of affected me. I literally had a few panic attacks in my house. I weren't able to sit down. I jumped up. But I was able to combat that. I was able to take that one on the chin, because sometimes I feel like the things you can't control, there's no point in you worrying about it. So this has been a real eye-opener for me. COVID-19, the dreaded COVID-19. I don't feel like it's all that. I feel like there's more that meets the eye with this COVID-19. I feel like it is a serious thing, but I don't feel like it's as serious as it's being made out. Not that I want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely feel like there's not all that meets the eye with this one. Obviously, it's claiming lives, and people losing their lives to anything is not great at all. It's not good for the world. But I feel like we just need to stay strong at this time and remain human. We need to find a bit of humanity, have a bit of empathy towards everyone else's situations, find it within yourself to kind of help people. I was doing shopping for people at the beginning of this on my roads. And I know a lot of people say, oh, if you're going to do that, why have you got to film it and blah, blah, blah. But not everything that you film is derogatory. Sometimes you film stuff to raise awareness so that someone else will be inspired to go and do that. So I haven't been vocal with me doing the shopping for people, but if you see someone in need, help them out. If you've got the means to, why not? That's what they're there for. So I feel like the world has come together a little bit more in this time as well. Obviously, with the clapping for the NHS and the appreciation of people that do the lesser jobs that people don't want to do, I feel like it's shined the light on a lot of people that wouldn't be celebrated or much appreciated in what they called normal circumstances, if the world was ever normal anyway. So I feel like it's a real eye-opener for the world at the minute. Well, with the Black Lives Matter, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not with the Black Lives Matter movement, the BLM, actually as a hashtag. I don't know the organisers of it. I don't know who runs it. So I'm not going to promote it as such. In saying that, I am all for changing in the structure of the world. It seems like we're not being given the same opportunities as other people. We're not being given the same opportunities as the next man who is of the same quality as us, but they may be a white person. So I'm all for changing the social injustices of the black people, as being a black person myself. I'm all for the change in social injustice in the world. I believe as humans, there's been a load of social injustice and we need to look at everything as a whole. But at the moment, what we can see is black people are being killed, basically. We're being killed. We're being placed on a lower level than everyone else. We're trying to talk about it and people are trying to censor us for talking about it. You say Black Lives Matter, someone says all lives matter. I had a disagreement with someone the other day that was telling me about all lives matter. I said to them, that's fine, all lives do matter, but right now Black Lives Matter. And they asked me to explain it. So I simply said to them, if your house was on fire, God forbid, and I came with a fire extinguisher and I stared in your face and you said, my house is on fire, I would stare in your face and say, I know your house is on fire, but all houses matter. So I ran down the road and started putting out the fire on the other houses before yours. That is what it means to say all lives matter. So I'm happy for this movement. I'm happy that we're now being given the platform to have a voice, because it seems like before we wasn't being believed when we were saying in the workplace we was not being given this chance to get this promotion because of our colour and not based on our ability. I'm happy that people are actually now starting to believe the perils of the black people. And we've seen it with things like George Floyd. We've seen it constantly since that's happened, that there is like a certain amount of just a lack of respect for the lives of black people. And you see it in differences in arrest techniques. You see a black person, police will approach a black person and with their guns out, and a white person, they will give them many chances before taking their guns out, before even taking a taser out. And we're not saying that you should just do that to everybody, but we're saying everybody should get a fair crack of the whip. Poor choice of words. But we just want the same opportunity as someone else. We're not saying that we want to take over the world and we should have all the jobs and we should do this. We just want to be given a fair shot at the job as the next person, and that's it. Going forward, I feel like the movement needs more leaders, needs more organisation. At the moment, things are starting to take a turn back for the worse. You're seeing little things, little incidents happen, little like gatherings happening, and then the outcome is not great and it doesn't look good for what we're trying to achieve. So I feel like there needs to be some form of leadership and organisation at this point before it becomes a negative effect what we're trying to achieve. But it's great to see that the world is coming together as a one person to try and heal the atrocities of what's been going on to another race. I'm definitely here for it. So the world's just in an uncertain place at the minute, and there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of olive branches that need to be given out. COVID, Black Lives Matters, unrest for police brutality, all these things, and it's just like we see the world coming together, but we can see how easily it can fall apart as well. And I just feel like we need to be a bit more empathetic towards each other, understand that people are going through things, everyone's going through things, everyone's battling something in their own little way, and be less judgmental as well. I've been judged for so many years for things that I've done in the past that I'm not proud of. And maybe now I'm not that person, but I'm still being judged for the errors of my ways when I was younger. We need to understand that everybody has a different experience of everything. So the experience that one person may have with me may be different to the experience that another person has based on the way they've been with me, based on the way that person's been with me. They will have two different experiences. So it's a good thing to use your own initiative, take the time to get to know someone, take the time to get to know a situation off your own accord. Don't go off what somebody tells you about someone or what someone tells you about a situation. Find out for yourself, do the research, do things like that, inform yourself, educate yourself, instead of listening to all these things. You know, someone will come up with a YouTube video and that's their evidence. That's their evidence they're basing their argument on. And that's not it's information, but it's not the correct information. Go to the source, find out what's going on. And this is the same with relationships, with people. Go to the source of the person, find out who they are, have a conversation with them. You never know, they might be the nicest person you've ever met, but the other person is saying they're the most horriblest person that they've ever met. And that's because they've gone into that whole situation thinking like that. So I just like people to educate themselves a bit more and equip themselves a bit more when they're going into discussions or going into friendships, socializing groups, and just have a little bit of knowledge about them. That's been part one of the interview, a little bit about me, give you a little insight into me. Stay tuned for part two, where I talk more on football.